Welcome, Jean. Get us going.
Lori said alcohol is her favorite alcoholic beverage.
That's fairly general.
Yeah. As I always like to say, I'm sure this is how all of the finance trainings you've been to in the past have begun. With a DJ and a discussion of alcohol. But that pretty much does give you a sense of what the next 2 hours are going to be like. So my name's Jean Bell, and I curate leadership webinars for Nonprofit Quarterly. I know some of you are members of our Leading Edge program, and others of you are here because you want to meet Greg and you don't know anything about NPQ. So welcome to everybody. This is a partnership we do every year because we're invested in nonprofit sector leaders. We don't think there's anybody who does nonprofit specifics QuickBooks training like Greg and his team do. So if you haven't met him before, you're meeting someone who's now going to be in your toolbox in terms of the resources and other trainings they do, et cetera. So we're glad to do this once a year as you focus on improving your budgeting process, whether that's coming up in January or July or what have you. I also want to say that when the session ends, a quick survey is going to pop up where you can share your feedback on the session, but very importantly, and this will be the only really easy way to do this, you'll be able to opt in, if you want to Greg's video newsletter that has monthly tips. So please do just stay as he closes the session. It'll take you 30 seconds. And if you want to opt into that resource, you'll be able to tell him directly. I think that's it for now, Greg. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for being here.
All right, cool. So a little bit about me, and I think I have a slide on this. Let me see. Although you could just simply look at me. There I am. All right, so hello. So I am a CPA with an accounting practice in Atlanta, Georgia. I specialize in nonprofit organizations. I do about 35 audits a year. Well, not me and my team. We also do a little over 150 990s and growing. We also do monthly bookkeeping, quarterly, annual bookkeeping for nonprofits. And we also do consulting. Now, in addition to that, so that's kind of like an accounting firm that I have. But in addition to that, I also own a company that's called QuickBooks Made Easy. And let me get over to QuickBooks Made Easy for you. Where is it? Where is my website stuff? Oh, there it is. Okay. I will go over here and we'll just start typing it in here. It's called QuickBooks Made Easy. And after this webinar is over, I want to give you resources so that you can continue to learn. It's QuickBooksMadeEasy.com. And all we do is teach people how to use QuickBooks. We have webinars. We have trainings both on demand as well as live webinars. The on-demand webinars are here and on demand. If you go to the live webinars here, you'll see that we've got a webinar coming up next week that's just for people tracking restricted grants. And we also have our biannual 3-day webinar series that's coming up in November. You would want to take the one that's on November 8th and 9th. It's 2 hours a day for 3 days, teaches you everything you need to know about QuickBooks. And we're going to give you some discounts on that, but I don't want to talk about that yet because I just started teaching. I don't want to turn into a sales call, right? All right. So, okay. The other thing I need you to understand is that every webinar that I teach once for people using the desktop version of QuickBooks and once for people using the online version of QuickBooks. Today, we are going to be learning this one, the budgeting in the online edition of QuickBooks. Doesn't matter which online edition you have, as long as you have the budgeting feature, which is in the Plus and the Advanced version, which is the one that you get from TechSoup. That's the one that I'm going to show you how to use, okay? If your screen doesn't look like this, if your QuickBooks screen looks like this is the desktop version right here. So if this is what your screen looks like, you're in the wrong webinar, okay? So, and there's something in the chat that tells you exactly where to go if you are in the wrong webinar. And I want to know right now, we've got 124 attendees here. In the chat, how many people are in the wrong webinar? Because we did this yesterday. Has anybody got the desktop version? It's what's on the screen right now. Okay. Thank you for telling me that, Michaela. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to X out of here because it looks like everybody is in the right place. Do you want us to be logged into your QB Online accounts? Okay. Trying to follow along a lot of times means you end up listening. You end up not listening and you're losing information as I'm teaching it. Having said that, if you want to try and follow along, as long as you have multiple screens, I'm not going to hate on you. Okay. But just pay attention. The thing about this webinar is it's 2 hours. It's a lot of detailed material. We're going to be in QuickBooks the majority of the time doing stuff. Yes, you'll get the recording afterwards. You'll also get the PowerPoint slides, which are not that great. It's all about the recording because I'm spending all of my time in QuickBooks. I'm not in PowerPoint. All right. So but you will get the recording when it's over. I know that you cannot listen to anybody for more than 30, 40 minutes without needing to take a break. Otherwise, you're just going to, fall out. And so we're going to take a break in about 40, 50 minutes, okay? Because I don't want you to fall out, all right? And I want to keep things interesting. I want to keep things exciting. I am going to have this chat open. I will always be able to see what you're saying. Yes, Rita, we're going to share the recording. Dennis doesn't have the budget area in mind. So Dennis, I want to find out what version of the program you have. And I want everybody, if you don't have to do it now, but later on, if you click on this big gear right here, this gear, it looks like a flower, but this is where all of your settings are. And one of the things that you can see in here is account and settings. And if you click this one, you'll get these different features or these different areas of settings. One of them is called billing and subscription, and it tells you what you're using. I'm using QuickBooks Advanced, okay? You have to have QuickBooks Plus or QuickBooks Advanced in order to be able to do budgeting in QuickBooks Online, okay? So if you haven't got QuickBooks Plus or Advanced, then you need to upgrade, okay? And really, the best place to get QuickBooks Plus and Advanced is on TechSoup. So I'll throw this out there too before we get into budgeting. You could either buy QuickBooks from Intuit and you'll be paying $75, $100 a month. They'll give you 50% off for a little while and then the price is going to bump up. Or you could buy it from TechSoup if you are a charity, a 501c3 charity, a house of worship, or a library. You will be able to buy QuickBooks at $160 a year. A year. It's much, much cheaper. So if there's anybody, and there's 127 people on the call, is there anybody on this call that is paying a monthly fee to Intuit, having it drafted out of their bank account? You have to pay extra for the payroll. Okay. So if you're paying it monthly, Katie, Elizabeth, Emily, Justin, Carol, Melinda, Chelsea, all of you, you need to switch to the TechSoup version. It's free to be a member of TechSoup. It's very free. It's easy. You just click join if you're not a member. And then you'll have to prove to them that you're a 501c3. You just send them your letter or whatever. And then you can purchase the advanced version of QuickBooks Online for $160 and the plus version of QuickBooks Online for $75. If you are not already on this subscription, because it's just $160 a year or $75 a year, we can actually migrate you from your current account, which is an Intuit account, where you're paying monthly. We can migrate you over at QuickBooks Made Easy to the one from TechSoup, okay? And to do that, I believe the offer exists at the TechSoup's website now, okay? Ellen, yes, they said they couldn't keep the same company name if we switch. No, you could absolutely keep the same company name. You'll just have to have a different email address, but that's wrong. Is there a big difference between Plus and Advanced? Not huge, but I will tell you, look at the difference in price. It's $75 versus $160 a year. It's not much more. Get Advanced. The main benefit of it, besides being able to have a lot of users in at once, see, you can only have 5 users in at once here. You can have 25 here. But the bigger reason is if you get the online advanced, there's an auto backup feature that it automatically backs up your data file every 5 minutes, so that if something happens to your data file, say you link your bank account to QuickBooks and you download and enter a bunch of transactions and they're already in there, so you end up duplicating transactions and you're like, my books are screwed up. I want to go back to what it was an hour ago before I did this. If you have the plus version, you can't. If you have the advanced version, you can for free. Okay. So, and yes, Susie, they don't have a desktop version, and I doubt they ever will in online edition. I think it's going away because the desktop version is a subscription now as well. But anyway, all right. So if you go to my website, QuickBooks Made Easy, and you go to nonprofit services right here, you will see the migration service that we have, QBO to new TechSoup QBO. We'll take care of migrating it for you because it's not easy to do. It's quite the pain in the butt. All right. So anyway, enough of that. So let's get into what we're supposed to be talking about today, which is budgeting. All right. Here's the agenda. Okay. Ooh, another question. Charlene, we have TechSoup QuickBooks Advanced, but we have a separate payroll QuickBooks account that we pay monthly. Is there a way to have one account? QuickBooks says there's not a way to migrate away when we migrate from Bank of America. Don't use QuickBooks Online Payroll. It's not good. Okay. Especially for nonprofits. Okay. Can my QuickBooks Online account include QBO subscriptions from TechSoup? Yes. Yes, it can. It's the same software. It just went through TechSoup. It's the same app. Okay. All right. All right. Entering your budget. That's what we're supposed to be talking about. It's funny. I can do this webinar in 90 minutes, but we've got 2 hours. And I'll take every bit of that 2 hours up. And the reason why is I love talking. And plus, you can ask me anything, not just about budgeting. You can even ask me about your personal lives. Okay. Mike highly recommends Gusto. Melinda is asking me what the recommendation is. I do not like Gusto. I do ADP. And the reason why I do ADP is because it's actually the cheapest if you get it from TechSoup, because you can get it. Lori loves Gusto. Okay, well, never mind. All right. So apparently people like Gusto. All right. So entering your budget. So we're going to talk about how to enter your budget in QuickBooks so that you don't have to do it in Excel. Okay. And you can enter it. People are still like talking about payroll. All right. Everybody, refocus. Budget. Oh, by the way, we're going to break in like 30 minutes. Isn't that exciting? So, all right. Going to have a surprise for you at the break as well. All right. They're still talking about payroll. Okay. Enough of payroll. Budgeting. So entering your budget. We're going to show you how to enter your budget by income and expense account only. Okay. And we're going to do it by month. We're going to do it by year. We'll show you how to do it by quarter if any of you need that as well. But in addition to by income and expense account only, you can also do it by program. And you can also do it by grant. Okay. And we're going to cover all of that during this webinar. In addition, we'll be looking at reporting. We're going to look at a budget overview report. We're also going to look at a budget versus actual report. And then we'll spend a little bit of time doing other types of reports that don't really come in QuickBooks Online. You kind of have to build them. Okay. But we'll show you how to do that. So that's what we're going to cover. It looks like we're not going to do the reports part until the end, but that's not true. We'll be doing reports all the way through. The main thing I want you to remember now, and I'm going to come real close to the screen so I can show you this, or so you'll pay attention to me. There are 3 different types of budgets you can do in QuickBooks Online. Not 1, not 2, but 3. One of them is by income and expense account only, which is what most people do. How much for travel? How much for salaries? How much for supplies? how much for rent, how much for contributions, how much for foundation grants, okay? But then some people like to further split it by program. Programs are the main things that you do in service of your organization. The organization we're going to be using today is called Synergy Now. Let me go back over to where it is. Here it is. And Synergy Now, wow, it doesn't say Synergy Now, but nevertheless, the whole point of the organization is to get the country off of oil and get it onto environmentally friendly forms of energy like solar and wind. So in order to do that, we have different programs. So one program that we have in Synergy Now, this is a Maple Leaf company, is an annual conference that we do. We also have a guidance center, and then we have an aware campaign. Okay. And so we need to look at our expenses, not only by account, but we need to understand what program they relate to. Some people like to budget by program. So what's the budget for the Go Green Guidance Center program? What's the budget for the Synergy Conference program? That kind of a thing. Okay. All right. So you'll be able to do that. That's a second type of budget. A third type of budget is grants. Do any of you get grants that are restricted in any particular way? Put it in the chat if you get grants. Of course you do, okay? And if you get grants and they're restricted, sometimes they're just generally restricted, where it's like, spend it on a program, but we don't really care about your budget. Some of them, like from the state, Kim and Sarah from the feds, they're real anal, okay? They need to know, you spend this much on salaries, this much on travel, this much on blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, the shuttered venue grant. Exactly. That was restricted. Okay. So in that case, you have a budget for the grant. Now, you want to have the ability to compare what you spend on a grant to the budget for that grant. That's the third type of budget you can do in QuickBooks, a budget for a grant. Now, these budgets, the income and expense only budget, the program budget, and the restricted grant budget, you can do the monthly or yearly. All three of these you can, but there's three different types, okay? They don't talk to each other, okay? They don't talk to each other. In other words, the overall organization budget, you might do a budget that's income and expense only, but then you also might have a budget for a grant. And the budget for the grant says you're going to spend $5,000 of that grant on travel. Your total budget for the whole year's travel for the whole organization is $25,000. You're going to put $25,000 in this budget. You're only going to put $5,000 in this budget. Don't think that this budget rolls up to the overall budget. It doesn't do that. Okay. These are separate budgets. Okay. All right. And, all right. So yes, Charlene, restricted by account code. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Then you'd want to enter a budget for it if it's restricted by account. All right. So that's basically, yes, you can use all three. You enter transactions, you can use all three of them. Okay. Okay. And by the way, in order to use all three of them, and I think I'm probably going to teach this twice because it's so important. But if you haven't taken the overall training that QuickBooks Made Easy offers, we have our 3-day webinar series coming up in November. But I'm going to go ahead and just go to a transaction here because I want to explain something to you. When you enter a transaction, you need to put not one, not two, but 3 things about the transaction in QuickBooks. One of them is the expense account or the income account that it went to. This is the natural category: salaries, travel, supplies, what have you. And that's what you'll put here. I'll put, let's see, postage and delivery. Okay. Now you could have a budget for postage and delivery for the whole organization. Okay. That's the first kind of budget you can do. And when you do a budget to actual, it'll say budget for postage, 25,000, actual 5,000 so far. We've spent 5,000 of our budget. Okay. The second thing that you might want to track is the program that it relates to. And indeed, we actually have to do that. If you're a nonprofit, as long as you're not a house of worship, house of worships don't have to do what I'm about to say, but everyone else does. You also have to point your expense to a particular program. Is it for this Guidance Center program? Is it for the Synergy Conference program? Or is it for the Aware Campaign program? Sometimes you'll spend money that's not for a program at all. It's for admin. That's what the cost of coming this webinar was. It went to accounting, probably is the category. And over here under class, or maybe you call it training, actually. And then over here, you'd put it to the admin class, okay? Because it's an overhead type cost. Finally, sometimes you have money that you spend raising other money. Maybe if it's postage, maybe you send out a direct mail campaign, which who does that anymore? Some people do. I still get junk mail, don't you? But anyway, that would go to fundraising, okay? So Elizabeth says, our classes, we use them for grants. So if you take the restricted grant training or you take our 3-day webinar series next month, you will find that by far, the best place to track your grants is the customer. So that's what we teach. This is for your program. This is for the grant, and this is for the account. And we can do a budget by account. We can do a budget by grant, and we can do a budget by program. Okay. So what did you click on to get this page? Oh, okay. So Melinda, let me go ahead and exit out of this for a second. Okay. So anytime you want to enter a new transaction, you see this thing that says plus new. That's where all your new transactions are that you're going to enter. Looks like a big Tylenol pill. I'm going to click this. And then over here, this is where I hit check. Now, but she brings up another point. There are two formats that people look at QuickBooks in. One of them is the accountant view, and one of them is the business view. This is the accountant view. The business view sucks. Do not look at the business view. Look at the accountant view. In order to get to change between the two, if you click on this setting, this gear here, you'll see something that says switch to business view or switch to accountant view. Now, I'm going to switch to the business view because I know some of you are looking at business view just so that you can see. Yes, Cheryl says business view is terrible. Here's business view. The wording is different. The links aren't as good. Do not like it, okay? No, Diana, everybody can access the accountant view, all right? Everybody can. You just click on the gear right here, and you'll see something that says switch to accountant view, and you switch it. You don't have to be the accountant to see it. You'll be able to see it, okay? So, Diana, all right. Okay. All right, enough of that. Diana, already there. Thanks. Okay. Then it's just better. Just promise us, right, Cheryl? It's just better to be in the accountant view. All right. So, all right. Okay. Let me go back to here. So I was explaining to you that there's not one, not two, but 3 kinds of budgets: income and expense account only, by program, income and expense account for an individual program, and then by grant, income and expense account for individual grants. Okay. 3 different budgets, and they don't talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to enter a budget by income and expense account only first. And that's the one where I'm going to go into all the gory details. And then when we get to program and restricted after the break, it works the exact same way. Okay. So, but income and expense. Now, I'm kind of curious to see. Let me see. I have a poll here somewhere. Let me get to where my poll is. Got 132 people on the call, by the way. Isn't that exciting? Where are my polls? Let's see here. No, I don't have that here. Okay. So tell me, if you would, who's doing budgeting in QuickBooks now versus doing it in Excel? Who's doing budgeting in QuickBooks now? Give me a yes or a no. Angela says we don't know. That's okay. That just means you're honest. So it looks like it's more no's than yes, but not by much. The goal is for you to be doing your budgets in QuickBooks so that you can print your board reports immediately. You don't have to spend 2 days with the door shut working on this reporting for your board meeting, trying to do everything in Excel. It's a nightmare. You should be able to do it directly in QuickBooks, and that's what we're here to show you. Okay, so here we go. So in order to enter any budget at all, okay, I'm going to tell you to go to this little gear thing. Now, some of you will say, but wait a second, Greg, I see the word budgets over here, and you can go to that. But let me tell you, this bar over here, every week they change the words on this bar. So the words look different to different people because when they change it, they send it out in little tranches. Like they'll change it for 100,000 people. And then the next week they'll change it for another 100. Anyway, these things are annoying. So I don't even look at this. I try and use this bar as little as possible. Yes, Victoria, you're not crazy. It is always changing. Although you might be crazy Lori says it's infuriating. It is. Try teaching, and then you pop it up, and all of a sudden it looks different. So I tell people to go to the gear, and then I go to budgeting. Okay, so I'm going to click it. Now, if you already have budgets, you'll see a list of budgets right there. If you have no budgets at all, there won't be anything on here. Okay, I already have budgets. Okay, now if you want to get rid of a budget that's already there, I'll show you how to do it, because there might be people that have made attempts to create budgets. Very easy. If it's not there, then then what you'll see is this. Well, I think there's something else that pops up, but she says it says add your first budget. Yeah. But if you do see budgets, I'm going to click on this one here for 1920, and I'm going to edit it. You can edit it, you can copy it, you can delete, and you can run a report. I'm going to delete it. So I like cleaning up these. So the only thing that's here, the things I actually use. Okay. So I'm going to click add. Oh, by the way, there is an import budget feature. Some people ask me about it. What you basically have to do is get it in a format that's readable by QuickBooks. There's a sample CSV that shows you how to do it. Once you get your sample, your template filled in properly, you can import it. By the time you figured it all out, you could have just entered it in yourself anyway. So I don't really use that option. Ian says he sees a budget for every single customer. It must be that's somebody probably doing a budget for grants. Wait, did I miss something? I have a bottom budgets on the left. Is there a way to add it? Okay, so what I did was I clicked this gear. Where your budget is down here on the bottom left? Is that what you're telling me? I don't see budgets at all under the gear. If you don't see budgets at all under the gear, you do not have the right version of QuickBooks. You're going to need to upgrade to Plus or Advanced in order to be able to do budgeting. Okay. I'm not saying, no, there's not a way to add the budget here, Kyra, if it's not there. I don't use that anyway. I always use this gear right here at the top, okay? I don't have an import budget. That's probably because you have Plus and not Advanced. Okay, and then somebody else is trying to help you. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and one more time, I click the gear. I click budgeting. Oh, good. Kyra found it. All right. So to add a budget, we're going to click add budget, and then we name it. Now, is there anybody that used to work in QuickBooks Desktop and now is working in QuickBooks Online? Put it in the chat. Anybody that used to work in QuickBooks Desktop and now they're in QuickBooks Online? So the budgeting in Desktop would only allow you to add like one budget for the year. You couldn't do multiple budgets for the same year. In Online, you can do multiple budgets for the same year. I don't know why you would. Well, there's actually a reason. We can talk about that. But because you can do multiple budgets for the same year, that's why they want a name for your budget. Okay, and that's what this is right here, this name thing. So I'm just going to call it my initial budget. And I'm going to make this for the time period of July 24 to June 25. Actually, I'll do July 25th to June 26th. I'll do that. Okay. And that actually reminds me a poll that I have. Let me go ahead and launch this poll. When is your fiscal year? Does your fiscal year end December 31 like regular businesses do? Or does it end in the middle of the year on June 30? Or does it end on September 30? Or is it something else? Okay, we got 131 people on the call. I need every single solitary person to answer. Brittany put her answer in the chat. I would love it if y'all could put in the poll. If you don't see a poll, then I guess put it in the chat. It means that you're not, if you've maximized your screen, you can't see the poll, or if you're not using the actual Zoom app, then you're not in there. But let's see. So we've got 113 people have answered out of 131. Some people have maybe gotten on the phone and aren't paying any attention. That always drives me crazy. But anyway, that's okay. So as you can see, 60% of you have a December 31 year end, and a quarter of you have a June 30. So I'm going to tell you, my organization here ends on June 30. And the reason why I think it's a better idea to have your fiscal year end to be June 30 is because if you have a year end of December 31, then that means your year ends. And then during January, February, March, April, you're trying to get your books closed, your tax return done, your audit done, the same time that everybody else is trying to get theirs done, including all the individuals in this country. And so the accounting firms are swamped, and you get backburnered until the summertime, or you're paying a premium. So I think it's a better idea if you change your fiscal year. Now, it's very easy to change your fiscal year. You don't have to notify anybody especially. You simply vote on the board. You, at your next board meeting, you could say, I'm going to change my fiscal year to September 30, okay? And it's going to begin September 30 of 22. Then you simply do a short year tax return, January 1 through September 30 of 22. And when you send that into the IRS, that's the only notification that you need to give, all right? And then you start October 1 and in September 30. And now you're looking for somebody to do your tax return and your audit at a time of year when we accountants aren't very busy, all right? So that's what I am thinking, all right? Very easy to do. All right. Anyway, so I told you there's not one, not two, but three different ways to do a budget. You see this subdivision thing? Either don't subdivide, customer, or class. These are your threes, okay? This one, initially, I'm just going to do a don't subdivide. That means it's by account only, all right? So I'm going to click next, and then I get to a screen where I fill in the data. Looks like a spreadsheet, okay? Thank you, Erica. Yeah, July through June, it aligns well with a lot of government grants, actually, okay? In the state of Georgia where I am, it certainly does. We have donor instead of class. No, you don't. You have donor instead of customer. And yes, that's customized somewhere. You don't have donor instead of class. Okay. So, all right. And yes, that's customized somewhere. I'll show you how to do that later. It's not really that important. All right. So, okay. So there are two philosophies around how people enter their budgets. Some people, when they enter the budget, let me go ahead and duplicate this screen. No, you don't need to delete, Kim. If you don't delete old budgets, they're not going to be moved up to the cloud anyway. QuickBooks doesn't copy those old budgets over. Yes, you can enter budgets by project, Sarah. That's the same thing as a customer. We'll get to that after the break, okay? All right, guys, try and stay focused on what I am talking about right here. There'll be plenty of time for those other questions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. All right, so there are two philosophies for how people enter budgets, okay? Some people, when they look at a budget to actual report, they like the budget column to always be the entire year, In other words, 3 months has gone by here, July, August, and September of 2024. For those 3 months, we've gotten in $4,901 of money. The budget for the year is $55,000. We've gotten in 9%. Okay. This is budgeting by year. Some people don't like that. Some people instead like to budget by month or quarter. Usually it's month. And if you budget by month, I want you to see with the report how it's different. If you budget by month, then you'll see here the actual was 4,901. The budget is 9,000 because if you budget by month, then the budget column is simply going to give you the budget for July, August, and September. So you're comparing apples to apples versus, in this case, where you're comparing 3 months to the entire year. Okay. So having said that, I want to see if this question is in here. Let's see. Yes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and launch this. So when you budget, do you budget by month? And you might not do it in QuickBooks yet. Do you budget by quarter? Do you do it by year? Or what's a budget? Which means no, don't do a budget at all. You got to do a budget, man. You got to. It's the only way that you can see how you're doing as compared to what your original plan was. So keep answering, guys. Come on, man. Answer. Is it by month, by quarter, by year? So, Karen, if you do a month, then you can also do a year at the same time. You don't really have to do. So Karen says multiple columns, so that must mean by month. We have an operational budget by year and a cash budget by month. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's really weird. Budget by year, but by class. I'm not talking about that yet. I know some people budget by class, some people budget by program, some people budget by grant. I don't want to talk about that. I'm just saying your budget in general, do you budget by month or do you budget by year? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and I'm going to share the results. And you can see that over half of you are currently budgeting by year. All right. Now, let me show you what the problem is with budgeting by year. Okay. I'm not going to say don't do it, but I will say the following. When I look at this budget, there's $4,901. And then the whole year is 55. We've gotten an 8.9%. 3 months has gone by. Now, without thinking, just tell me what your knee-jerk reaction is if you were on the board. 3 months has gone by and you've gotten in 9% of your budget. Is that good or bad? Put it in the chat. Does that look good or bad? Good or bad? Yeah, it looks bad. They're flipping out, okay? What do you think they would expect to see as percent of budget that's gone by? Yeah, Mike said it. They would think that it should be 25%. Now, what is listen carefully before you start frantically typing. Listen to me. What is the assumption that the board is making about how you get your donations in if you assume that should be 25%? What is the assumption that the board is making about how you get your donations in? Yes, you get them evenly. The assumption is that you get 1/12 of your donations in once a month. They come in consistently. Does this happen? Is this how your donations come in? Absolutely not. Okay. And the board's not stupid. It's not like they don't know that. It's just that in general, the first thing a board member does, because see, it's hard. You're analyzing 3 months of data to a year of a budget. So all things being equal, they start with that. And then the point here is I want to prep you, those of you that budget by year, anytime this percentage is a lot more, or a lot less than, in this case, 25%, you'll be getting questions. So rather than sending this out to the board just like it looks, what I like to do is send it over to Excel, export to Excel. Wow. And look, in the advanced version of QuickBooks, you can actually export it to Google Sheets. You can't do that in Plus, but you can in Advanced. I'll click Export to Excel. So, Emily, I wouldn't want to divide the annual budget over 12 months equally, not for contributions. You might want to do it for telephone or rent. Okay. Either way, budget, accrual, or cash. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a couple of these changes here. Annual budget, because that's what it is. I'm just going to say that. And then I'm going to put that 25% of year has passed. So that then I can, because that's what they're going to be thinking anyway. So I'll just put it here. And then I can start to put notes. Calm it down. Wait till December, right? Because that's when you get all your donations in. Okay. So let me stop sharing the results here. No, I don't think it will be a hassle, Melinda. I think if you click to upgrade within QuickBooks, it'll do it for you automatically. All right. So the point is, I would prefer not doing this. I'd prefer to budget by month. But anyway, before we get into that, let's show you how to budget by year, okay? Because I know some of you want to budget by year, and that's perfectly fine, okay? So to budget by year, what you're going to do is you're basically needing to put just the total for the year in, okay? Now, you'll notice the total column is grayed out. You can't type in this. You have to type in one of the 12 months, okay? Now, you might say to me, Greg, you're wrong, because I can click this little mini gear here, and I can say view by year, and then when I put it in here, I can put the whole amount. You might say, Greg, I can do this, okay? But see, that's actually not budgeting by year. That's still budgeting by month, because what it does, I'm going to click on the gear here. I'm going to click view by month. And then what it does is it splits the numbers out, okay? And so you're still budgeting by month, which means your reports, the budget column will be by month. If you want the budget to be by year, you can't be doing this, okay? And so we want to clear this out. It's interesting. All right, so instead, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. And I'm just going to, there should be a clear button here, and I'm not seeing it. Let me scroll down to the bottom and see if it's at the bottom. Maybe it's over here. That's weird. There should be a clear button. That's very strange. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put the real number. First of all, I'm just going to clear this out. So I'm just going to put a 0 here. And then I'm going to press this forward thing, and it zeroes the whole thing. All right. So, all right. And then what I'm going to do is I've got to put the whole year's budget in one of the months, either July or June. Either the first month of the year or the last month of the year is the one that you want to pick. Okay. And only one of them is the right answer, and the other one is the wrong answer. So let me just stop again, because I realized I got a little distracted because I was looking at Karen's thing. But let's Karen, that's something I got to think about later. All right. So look at me. Those of you that want to budget by year, you must put your entire budget in one of the columns of these 12 months. And it always has to be either the first month of the year or the last month of the year. One of those answers is the right answer. One of those answers is the wrong answer. So I'm going to ask you, you can put it in the chat. Who thinks if you budget by year, you should put your budget in the first month versus the last month? And I want everybody to answer. Put it in the chat. Who thinks you should put the budget by year in the first month versus the last month of the year? Okay. Keep going. So I see some firsts. I see some lasts. I'm seeing more firsts than last. No, there's some more lasts. Okay. All right. Not the middle. It's always either the first or the last. And it's one of them is the wrong answer. Okay. So now I want you to listen to me, because I'm going to teach you something, and then I'm going to re-ask the question. Okay. All right. When you do a budget by month, when you look at a report, a budget by year, when you do a budget by year, and then you get a report, 3 months has gone by, July, August, and September, the actual column, it comes from the actual transactions that you entered for July, August, and September, the first 3 months of the year. The budget column, if you budget by year, you want it to be the whole year. But what QuickBooks is going to do is it's going to fill out these numbers by looking at July, August, and September of the budget entry screen. Okay. So it's going to look up here, and whatever the time period is, it's going to go over to the budget entry screen, and it's going to pull the numbers from however many months has gone by, in this case, 3 months. So now that I've told you, now I'm going to ask you again, where should you put the budget if you budget by year? The first month or the last month? Now it definitely should be the first. All right. So that's where we're going to put it. So I already did it. I'll just go ahead and fill this in because I want to make another point here. So I'm just going to put my numbers in. That's a really weird number. But anyway, here's water. I'll put some numbers in there. Local travel, put some numbers in here, whatever. Okay. So when you're done, you click save. Now I'm going to click the X to get out of here, and you will see now I have this new budget, my initial budget. Okay. And it's for the year of 25 and 26. Notice for the year 24, 25, I've done two budgets. I've done a budget by year and a budget by month. And I did see a few of you like to do that, which is fine. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And I'm going to go back to my budget by year, and I'm just going to edit it so that you can see, indeed, I put all of the numbers in the very first month of the year. A lot of you, this month will be July, I'll be January. Mine is July. All right. So that's how you budget by year. All right. So now another thing that's really kind of cool is when you go to enter a budget, let's say I am going to add a budget. And, actually, let's not do that. Hold on. So let's say you're trying to do a budget for the next year, and you literally like to start with the budget from last year. Okay. So what I can do is I can take the budget from last year and I can create a copy of it. So I'm going to create a copy, and then I'll name it, because this is going to be my budget for the next fiscal year, 25, 26. And then I'll just rename it 25-26 annual budget. Okay. And then I click create budget, and the budget's created. The numbers are already there. And then you can just make the changes that you would like. Sarah says you can't change the interval to be the year. You can change the interval to be the year, but it's still going to budget by month. Okay. So, okay. Can you budget some things by month and some by year? No, that doesn't make sense. Everything if you're going to budget by month, you want everything budgeted by month. Now, things that you just have an annual total of 2,500. If you don't know what month you're going to spend it in, just divide it by 12. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here, and let's talk about budgeting by month now, because we haven't done that yet. So I'm going to go ahead and click add budget, and I'll put my name, my monthly budget. And we'll do this for 25, 26. Again, if you change this interval to yearly, it's not yearly. It's going to take the number you put in. It's going to divide it by 12. So just keep this at monthly. If you wanted to budget by month, that's what you would do anyway. Now, you can, if it's monthly, a lot of times people like to start by having it pre-fill the numbers from the previous year or the current year. Okay. So I can click pre-fill data with actual data from prior years, and then you can change it later. I'll decide not to do that. I'll click next, and then you just put in your numbers. So donations, this is an example where you'd probably want to be typing it in. All right. Based on last year, 6,000 here, September, it goes up to 10,000. But some things where you're like, okay, postage and delivery, it's 2,500 for the year, but I don't really care about, breaking it out. We'll say it's 3,000 for the year. So what I'm going to do is I got to divide 3,000. Well, actually, even before I do that, let's do another. I want to do rent first. Rent's something where it's the same every single month, but you know what the monthly rent cost is very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click 2,400. That's the rent. I don't want to have to type it 12 times. So I can click this little across arrow, this little circle with the arrow on it, and it copies it all the way across. That way I don't have to type it 12 times. Okay. But there are some expenses where, I don't know, you just kind of budget for the year. You don't really think about it as a monthly expense. I think that's what that woman was getting at. It's like postage. So let's say postage is $3,000 a year. So I'll just now I could take $3,000 and divide it by 12 on a calculator and get what the number is. Or I could use QuickBooks as a calculator. Now, if you don't know about this, it's pretty cool. And it's not just in this field. It's in any place where you can enter transactions, where any place where there's a dollar amount you're entering. I'm going to take $3,000, just typed it with my finger. Then I'm going to take this same finger and I'm going to push the dividing, which is the forward hash, which is underneath the question mark. It looks like it's not going to take it. This value is out of range, but it actually knows it's dividing. I'm going to push 12. And I don't push equals. I just press the tab button and it does the math for me. And then I click this and I copy it. Isn't that kind of cool? Okay. Now, sometimes when you go to do that, could you search for account name instead of scrolling up and down? Yeah, like this. There isn't a search feature here. No. You must have a really long chart of accounts, Claudia. All right. Well, that's another problem. Yeah, that's another problem. Anyway, so I'm going to go to a different one because I want to show you one problem with this. Let's say it's 2,500. So I'm going to take 2,500 for the year for printing. I'm going to divide it by 12. I press the tab and I get 208.33. Can you see there's going to be an issue here? I'll click the arrow. It copies it across and look what my total is. $2,499.96 because it was a rounding problem. Okay. Now, here is where I think it's a really neat idea to use that little thing that I showed you up here where you can change the interval. It's really only interval. It's only helpful for people that budget by month. And I'm going to click this. I'll make this 0 again. So watch this. Because see, if I do this, 2,500 divided by 12, and then I copy it, I have to literally see, okay, there's a 4-cent difference. So I have to go over here and make this 7 cents. So this will really be my budget, which is a pain. Okay. So what we can do instead, I can just click this X to clear it all out. I forgot about that. All right. So now what I'm going to do is for this one, I'm going to click on this little mini gear. I'm going to make the view by, because that's what it is. It's just how you view it. It's not what really is there. It's always by month. So I click year. I'm going to go down to where that printing is, and I'm going to put 2,500 here. This is going to blow your mind. Now I'm going to press this and make it go back to monthly, and let's see what it did. It came up with the same 208.33, but when it got to the last month, it did the fix for me so that the total is actually 2,500. Now, what do you think of that? That's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. If I copy this year's budget, can I add additional accounts for next year? Yes. Once you add the additional accounts, they'll be added onto the bottom. Can you post your questions for everyone to see? It would make it easier to understand the answers. Yes. So people, when you put questions in the chat, mark it everyone, and I'll try and repeat the questions before I answer them. Sorry about that. All right. Let's see. What else is there? So I know how to enter a budget now by month. So I think I'm just going to skip over. I'm going to exit out of this, And let me just show you what a monthly budget looks like. You'll have numbers, in every single column. Okay, so that's how that works. All right. So then to look at reports, I think what I'm going to do is break now. Okay, because it feels like a good stopping part. I need to finish with the reports on this, but I'm going to do that after the break. So Diana's question, let me look at Diana's question. Let's see. Oh, I'll get to her in a minute. All right. So there were a few of you that wanted to understand how to enter new accounts on a budget. So where are you? Put in the chat. Who are the people that wanted to know how to add a new account into the budget? Put it in the chat. Who is it that wanted to add new accounts to a budget? Because I need to explain it, but if you're not back, I don't want to explain it if you're not back. Okay, Grace wants to know. Anybody else? Michaela wanted to know. Okay, so does Maria. So does Rita. Okay, so here's the deal. Look at the screen. I'm leaving in the next 10 minutes. Christian, you aren't going anywhere. Okay, sir? You are staying right here. Or ma'am. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this budget. So the point that I think this person is making is when they go to enter, there is no account in here for what she wants to enter. The reason why there won't be an account in here is because it's not in the chart of accounts list. Hello? And so what you have to do is you simply have to enter it in the chart of accounts list. Okay. So we'll just create another one. Let's see. We'll create retirement and we'll make it 6015. All right. So I'm going to exit out of this budget. And then I'm going to go to the chart of accounts list. And I'm going to create a 6015 plus new. And this will be an expense account. And let's see, save account number. I'll put it under expenses. And I will make it, this doesn't really matter. I just have to stick it somewhere. It doesn't really matter. All right. And then the account name, will make it retirement. Because we didn't have retirement last year. Now we do. So we need a budget for it. 6015. I'll click save. I'll go back to where you enter a budget now. We'll go to my budgeting. We'll go to the budget that I've already started. I'll edit it. And then you'll see that now it's there and I can enter a number for it. Okay? Y'all got it? Yes? Hello? Thank you. I don't like not being talked to. All right. So yes, and Diana, you're right. I'll be getting to that in a minute. So those of you that are interested in the grants part. Christian, thank you, Gene and Greg. I do wish I could stay. I just have a class I teach after school, 3:30 to 5:30. All right. Well, I guess you can go, Christian. I'm still not happy about it, but I guess you can go. All right. So how do you get reports? Now, listen very, 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 very carefully, okay? Because I want to talk about reporting, and then we'll get to the grants and the grants budget and the program budget. But first, just in general, how to get budget reports. So I'm going to click budget to actual. Now, I'm going to tell you that you can go to this budgeting thing and you can get your reports right here, okay? But I am going to tell you that in the end, you're going to much prefer memorizing the reports and getting them from your memorized reports list. And I'll show you where that is in a minute, okay? So, but initially, we got to start by going here. So I'll do my 24-25 budget by year. I'm going to click it. I can either run a budget versus actual report or a budget overview report. The budget overview report is a good report to give you to get your board to vote on it. You can print that out or email it to your board and they can vote on it. The problem is it looks really stupid, right? Because we don't budget by month. We budget by year. Everything's in the first month. I don't need all these columns, okay? So let me show you how you can fix this. So I'm going to go to Customize, Anytime you want to make a change to a report, click the Customize button. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. Now, there's this thing called Show Grid. And accounts versus months means the accounts will be the rows and the months will be the columns. So look at the different options here. Now, which one would you pick if you budget by year? Put it in the chat. Which one would you pick if you budget by year? Yeah, I would just put accounts versus total. And then I click Run Report. And now this is what I can send. That's pretty simple. All right. So I'm going to go back to my budgeting, and then we'll see what happens with the by month. So when I click on this budget overview report, now this one I probably would like because I budget it by month, and this is probably what I want to see to make sure that I did everything right. All right. So now when it comes to the budget to actual reports, let's look at the budget by year. I'm going to click it. I'm going to run budget versus actual. Now, I want you to see what it does. It assumes I budget by month. Okay. July. Here's my actual numbers. Here's my budget numbers, which are actually the budget for the whole year. And then here's a dollar amount and a percentage. Then the same thing for August. Actual budget, nothing in for August because we budgeted by year and we put it in July. And then variances. Then the same for September. Big old long report. Needless. Okay. So you tell me, how are you going to customize this so I don't have all these columns? Margaret will get to that. We're going to do that at the end. How would I get to this? Change it. So I'm going to click on Customize. Thank you, Yolanda. And then what do I do in Customize? To get rid of all of those columns. Remember, yep, thank you. You go to Show Grid and you go Account versus Total. Y'all are learning. This is great. I'm going to click Run Report. This is what I want to give the board. Okay. Now I want it this way every single month I do this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Save Customization right there. Okay. I'm going to click it. It wants to name it. This is fine. I'll click Save. Now, I can't have colons in there. It doesn't look like. So I have to change this. Where is the colon in here? There it is. So I'll just get rid of that colon, and then I'll click Save, and now it's saved. So now, when I want to look at my budget to actual reports, I no longer go to the gear and go to budgeting. I don't do that because if I do that every single frickin' time I do it, I'm going to have to go in and customize the report. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to reports and I'm going to go to where my memorized reports list is. Now, if you've never worked in QBO before, when you click on reports, there'll be 4 areas. Standard, those are the canned reports that QuickBooks already has. Custom reports, those are your memorized reports. That's where it's showing there now. Where is it? Here it is right there. This one right there. Management reports and multi-company reporting, forget about it. So now I'm just going to click on this one and it pops it up, ready to go. All I have to do is change the date range. Okay. Why does some budgets have edit and other budgets and others have a budget overview on the far right? Okay, let's go back to here. Budgeting. So this says edit and this says overview. Well, I believe it's because it's the last thing that you did with those two, but they all have all 4. Copy, delete, run budget versus actual, run budget overview. Versus down here, we got the same 4. Okay. I don't really know. That was just my attempt at an answer. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Diana. Anyway, so the thing that I want to take away from here is don't be going here to get your reports. Memorize it. Do the customization, memorize it, go over to custom reports, and then you'll be good to go. Okay. So that's the thing that I wanted you to remember about that. All right. So before I move on to program and grant budgeting, I do want to stop for a second and see if there's anybody that has any questions about what I've covered so far. So this is an interesting, Maria is guessing that it's because, and it's not a bad idea, these things are dated in the future and these things are dated in the past. So future budgets, you might want to edit. Past budgets, you probably wouldn't want to edit. Maria, that is so smart. Hold on a second, Maria. Maria, you kick butt. That has got to be the answer. Maria, I love you. Okay. Do you love me, Maria? Maria? Diana says, yes, that's what I was saying. Okay. Love is too much a strong word. Oh, wow. Okay. I see how it is, Maria. Well, we've got another 35 minutes for me to have you fall in love with me. All right. So what am I going to do here? All right. So I'm moving on now. I'm going to talk now about budgeting for grants and budgeting for programs. Our current chart of accounts is correct, and 22 actual expenses are in the budget. No budget numbers are appearing because no one has created a budget for this year. Totally makes sense. Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to go to the gear, and I'm going to change to a different company file. And then I'm going to restate the point that I stated a little bit ago about whenever you enter transactions. Let me go over here. Where is my, let's see. All right. When you enter transactions, there are not one, not two, but three things that you need to be thinking about when you're entering them. One is, what is the natural category or the account? Maybe it's supplies, maybe it's travel, maybe it's payroll, maybe it's rent. It's the normal way of thinking about expenses. It's the what of the expense, okay? But another thing that only nonprofits have to worry about, houses of worship don't have to worry about this, but nonprofits do, is you have to break out your expenses additionally by what program they relate to, or if it's not a program, whether it's an admin cost or a fundraising cost, okay? And typically nonprofits use the class feature in QuickBooks for that. I know there's a few of that are using classes for grants. I would love for you to take my 3-day webinar series next month, because I'm telling you, this is a much better way of handling things. So let me just show you why it is that it's so important that we use classes to track program admin and fundraising. I'm going to go to a 990 PDF. 990, that's the tax return that you have to fill out. Houses of worship don't really fill it out, which is why houses of worship don't have to worry about this, but everybody else that's a nonprofit does. Let's see, we have here, where are the expenses? Here are the expenses. Okay, so if you look at this, it's called the statement of functional expenses, and it's listed as a grid, where the rows, advertising, office, IT, occupancy, travel, salaries is up there somewhere. Those are the rows, and then you have a column for program, a column for management, and a column for fundraising. Okay, so if you want that, you can get it out of QuickBooks, but you've got to use the class feature to do that. Okay, so and then you can budget this way. So you do have to turn the feature on. If you do not have QuickBooks Plus or Advanced, you don't have the feature, but you can't do budgeting anyway. So you're going to have to upgrade. But anyway, I'm going to click on the gear, because if you have Plus or Advanced, you got to turn the feature on. We go to Account and Settings, and we're going to go to Advanced. And then within the Advanced settings, you'll see something that says Track Classes. You want to click on it, and if it's off, you want to turn it on. And then you want to check the box that says Warn me when a transaction isn't assigned to a class. And the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you can assign one to each row in a transaction. If you pick entire transaction, you'll only be able to point a transaction to one class, one program. Many times you need to split transactions between programs. So you pick that one. You click save there. You click done there. And now you got to add your classes. And I'm going to go to the gear here, and I'm going to go to all lists. And then you'll see the class list here, and here's your classes. So you'll want to have one for each one of your programs, one for admin, and one for fundraising. Karen says, what class should be used for income? Amazing question. If the income is related to a program, for instance, fees to get into the Guidance Center or a grant that's to be used for the Guidance Center, you point it to that class. If it is unrestricted donations, put it to the fundraising class. All right. Thank you, Erica. She's recommending the restricted grants webinar next week. Anyway, so once you have these set up, then you can do a budget. If you're a theater, each one of the classes would be your season shows. I have one class called the season, and then I have subclasses underneath it for each one of the shows. Okay. Is there a way to hide or archive old programs? I think I've already done it. Have I done it? Let me see. Yeah, I had a ton here, and what I did was I just simply made them. I'll make this one active again. Okay, so if there are programs that you don't want, like this one right here, I'll click it and I'll click make inactive. Yes, it hides it. Certainly that's what the theater would need to do because they have new shows every single year. What is the third thing for entering transactions? Category program. The third thing, Malika, is grants. Okay. Departments are your programs, Elizabeth. Okay. How did you get to the class list? You click on the gear, and there's not a place for classes here. So you go to all lists right here, Mike. And then you click classes. Okay. So, but you're using classes for programs. That's right. I'm using classes for programs. So, well, typically, Elizabeth, your department would be your program. List me your departments. List me your departments, because typically those are programs. You may be using departments separately, in which case you'd probably ops, fundraising, school. Okay. Ops, that's admin. Fundraising, that's fundraising. I've got that. School services, policy, and advocacy. Those are your three programs, girl. Okay. All right. School services, policy, and advocacy is not the name of a grant. The name of a grant is the name of the funder that gave you the money. They're not grants. Okay. It's acceptable to use the word general programs as a subclass. Yes, there is, if you don't feel like breaking it out as you go. That's right. Okay. Can you have subclasses for programs? Yes, you certainly can. We have classes and locations. Can we run a budget by location within a class? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. We are event driven. Can they be programs? Are they fundraising events or are they programming events? If they're programming events, Lakeisha, then yes, you want to use classes for that. All right. So what I'm going to do is let's get into the budget. I can tell you guys need to take the 3-day webinar series. All right. So I'm going to go to the gear. I'm going to go to budgeting. I'm going to add a new budget. Okay. And I'm going to call this my program budget. And this will be for the year 25-26. Again, you could, I'm not going to worry about that. You could fill in prior year data if you wanted to. No sense in doing the interval thing. It's kind of meaningless. Subdivide. I'm going to pick class. All right. And then what you want to do is you want to tell it which classes you want to enter a budget for. I would enter a budget for every single one of my classes, admin and fundraising. Can I bring a class back if I made it inactive? Yes, you can. I'll show you how to do that in a second, Melinda. Well, actually, you know what? Well, I'll show you. Hold on. Let me go ahead and click next. Okay, so here's where I enter my budget, but let me help Melinda real quick here. Everybody's waiting for Melinda. Hold on, let me duplicate this. So, because she's freaked out now because she accidentally got rid of one of her classes. So in order to bring a class back, what you have to do is you have to go back to the class list, all lists, and you're only seeing the active classes. So you need to see the inactives. You see this little gear here? You're going to click it, and you're going to click Include Inactive. Then you click again to get rid of the box, and now you'll see the Make Inactive, and you can click it. Okay? All right. Margaret's telling me, stop this. Just stick to the topic. I'll no longer be answering questions. My apologies to Margaret and the other person who's frustrated. You are in charge. I will simply teach. We'll do questions in a little while. All right. So what I'm going to do, no more frustration. So what I'm going to do is this is where you enter your budget. So this is the guidance center right here. And you enter the numbers for it. Now you can enter it monthly, or you can enter it quarterly, or you can enter it annually. If you enter it annually, where do you put the numbers? Put it in the chat. Where do you put the numbers if you enter it annually? In the first month. That's right. So for the guidance center, you'd put this, corporate grants, this, like that. Okay. When you're done, you click save. You click over to the next one. Synergy Conference, you enter those. Click save. Click over to the next one. Enter that one. And you want to do a budget for every single class, including fundraising and admin. Okay. So if you do that, I'm going to show you one that's already done, budget by program. Let's see, I think it's this one. Yeah. Okay. So here we have the fundraising class. We have the guidance center class with all of its numbers. We have the synergy class with all of its numbers. Again, we could have done it monthly, but we decided not to. The aware campaign with all of its numbers, and admin with all of its numbers. Okay. So I'm going to close this. Now, first of all, you could look at a report, just like you could for the overall budget. Notice these are different budgets. This is my budget by account only. This is my budget by program. Okay. So I'm going to run a budget overview report. And look what it gave me. I think it's quite beautiful. Okay. Now, the other report that you'll obviously want to run, go back to budgeting again, is the run budget to actuals report. So I'm going to click on this. And this is quite beautiful. So what this is, this will give the guidance center, it gives the actual and the budget, the dollar amount and the percent. Okay. So it's interesting because what have we got here? We're under budget by 28,000. So that negative makes sense. Here we're over budget in expenses, but this is a positive number. This sometimes annoys people, but there's not really anything I can do to change that. Okay. So I'm not looking at any questions, All right. So then if you want to get rid of one of these, like the over budget in dollar amount or percent, you could simply go to the customize, and then you can get rid of the numbers right here, the period comparison. I'll get rid of the percent. Okay. And then I'll click run report. So now it's just the dollar amount. But we can see our budget versus actual for each one of these things. Now, this is not necessarily what you'd want to show the board because it's way too big. Okay. Too many columns. But if you want to get rid of the columns on this report, let's go to customize. Instead of it being account versus classes, account versus total, run report. And now you got the report that the overall board could see. Okay. Which I think is really kind of cool. So I guess the point I'm really making is if you are going to budget by class, as long as you have a class for each one of your programs and one for admin and one for fundraising, you really don't need an overall budget. The budget by class will function both ways. All right. So I think that's really cool. So I'm going to move on to the grants thing, since I think we've got a number of questions about that. All right. So, all right. I'm going to take a sip of water. Claudia wanted to know, can you have a budget by just income and expense only, and then a budget by program as well? Yes, and you can run reports compared to either one of them. Are there some features only available in advance? There are a few, but not the ones that you guys are interested in. Okay, there's the main feature again, Rebecca, in advanced is that you can back up the file. Okay, so first thing I need to teach, I'm going to go back to Plus New. I'm going to click on check. And I told you this before. I'm telling you this again. This is where you put the natural category, dues and subscriptions. This is where you put the program that it's for. And I realize some of you are putting the grant here. I'd like you to change that. And then this is where you put the grant right down here. So the grant needs to go in the customer list. Okay. Yes, I believe you can, Charlene. I have to turn on the feature, but yes, you can. Charlene wanted to know if you could budget by location. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm answering questions again. I apologize. All right. So here's now the word donor, yours might say something different. So I'm going to show you how to change the word. Doesn't really matter what the word is, but it's just a learning thing. So I'm going to go up to the gear. I'm going to click to account and settings. If you notice, I keep going here when I'm turning on and off features. I click it. I go down to advanced. Click it. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. Customer label, donors. This is where you change it. I click on it and it gives me these choices. I can't create my own. I could call it clients, donors, or customers, donors, guests, members, patients, tenants. I'm going to go to customers. I'm going to click yes. I'm going to click done. It's going to do a little funky thing here because it's got to change how things look. Now, when I go to the Plus New and I click on check, now this says customer. Okay. All right. So, all right. So this is where you would put the grant. So the grant needs to be put in the customer list. Yours might be called donors. All right. Now, if you have turned on projects, you would still enter your the name of the project in the same exact field here. This is just going to say customer/project. The project list and the customer list are the same list in QuickBooks. So for the few of you that were asking about projects, it's the same exact list. Okay, there, and you'll see both your projects and your customers in the same field. Okay, so let's enter a budget for one grant. Okay, I'm going to start by entering a budget for one grant. Okay, so I'm going to click on the gear. I'm going to click budgeting. I'm going to click add a budget. And let's say I'm doing a budget for one grant. So we'll say this is for the RAC Foundation. All right. And now this, I need you to listen so carefully now. This is so, so important. Please listen very carefully. I'm going to say something that is going to blow your mind. Okay. This thing that says fiscal year, when it comes to your grants, you know, and I know that your grant year may not be the same as your fiscal year. Many times it's not. Your year ends December 31, your grant year ends June 30. Or the grant goes for 2.5 or 3 years. So when you're entering a budget for a grant, people get very freaked out and they don't know what to put here. Okay. Now, this is the thing that's going to freak you out. It doesn't matter what you put there. It's completely irrelevant. Okay. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. When you do a report later on, simply expand the date range to all dates. The budget doesn't matter what year you put it in. The budget column will have your budget. And the actual will only have the transactions pointed to that grant. Okay. Yeah, I already answered that. Charlene wanted to know if you can budget by location. Yes. All right. So what I'm going to do is, just for the heck of it, I'm going to pick the year 25, 26. It doesn't matter. I don't know how many times I have to say that. It doesn't matter. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to subdivide by customer, and I'm doing this for the RAC Foundation. So I'm going to find where that grant is. Here it is. I'm going to click next, and then I enter my budget. What month should I enter it in? It doesn't matter, okay? It mattered if you budget by year for your overall budget and for your P&L by program, but budgeting for a grant, it's not relevant, okay? Doesn't matter. So I just put my number in here. We got $50,000. And this you would get off of the grant itself, probably in the appendix, okay? And we'll say that we've got, hold on a second. I think I can actually put in real numbers. All right. So we'll say the salaries are $25,000. And we'll say the payroll taxes are $2,500. So we're getting that off of like Appendix A or whatever, where you give them the budget. $2,500, and the rent is $12,000, and printing is, I wanted to make this real, so I know you're not really learning anything as you're watching me enter this, but I'm almost done. $3,000, and got to give your head a rest anyway. Consulting is $5,000. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to save that. So then I'll go back to my report. Where is it? This is it right here. So I'm going to run an overview. There it is. Now, the reason why it looks like this is because I have the way to set up grants, and I'm actually going to teach this tomorrow. Let me show you how this looks. The way to set up your grants in the customer list or donors list or project list, doesn't matter, is what I like to do is I like to have the name of the funder as a customer, and then each grant as a funder underneath it. That way I can control each grant and look at a report for grants individually. But because this grant, this is the one I entered the budget for, grant 2425 50K, since this is a sub under that, I want to see this on a report. It's going to give me the parent. So the parent has nothing. The parent is a column with nothing in it. Then there's this, then it totals, and then there's a total. Okay. So this gives me a P&L for my grant. Okay. So let's see. Budget overview. Okay, so now what I can do is I don't need all of these columns. So I can simply customize, go to the grid and make this account versus total. And now I've got my budget. All right. So no, it's not important to have them listed as restricted and unrestricted. What if I want to put my grant to be in with other classes? I don't do that, Katie. You cannot, because you have to point it to a grant and a program. You can't have both at once unless the grant is a sub of the program. Maybe you do that. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to look at questions. Let me finish teaching. So what I'm going to do, just keep looking at me and maybe some of these questions will be answered. So now what I want to do is I want to get a budget to actual for the board, and not for the board, a budget to actual for the grant. So I'm going to go to budgeting and we'll go back. Now understand, we still have our overall budget for the board. We have the budget by program. We have the overall budget. That's what we would give to the board. This RAC budget is separate. See, it's a separate budget. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click Run a Budget versus Actual Report. Now, again, when you first look at it, even though we only entered a budget for the RAC Foundation grant, this report is going to give me more than just, well, it is giving me just that. The problem is, look at it, there's no transactions. It says 0 everywhere, okay? Now, it's because, look at this, it's July 25, 226, because that's when I decided to enter it. But again, the very most important thing is you want to make this date range all dates, because when you make it all dates, it'll capture all transactions. Doesn't matter what fiscal year they're in, but the budget column will only have the grant budget in it. So I'm going to click all dates. Now, when I do that, it's going to give me not just the budget that I had, a grant that I had a budget for, but it gives me everyone, which is something that's really, really stupid when it comes to grant budgeting. I don't know why it does this. It annoys me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this filter tab. Now, filtering works the opposite way than you would think it would work. You don't filter out what you don't want. You filter in what you do want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I'm going to filter by customer. Yours might say donor. And I'm going to say, please just give me the RAC Foundation, which is right here. So I will click Run Report, and now it's giving me the actuals, the budget, and the variance. All right. Now, yeah, I do have some actual transactions in here. Now, I don't like all these columns, so I'm going to click Customize. Come on, Billy Bob. All right. Sometimes you have to refresh the screen. I'm sure you're well aware of that. And so then I'm going to click Customize. And instead of it being account versus customers, I'll do account versus total. And now I have my actual to budget for the RAC Foundation. And what I can do is I can save that customization. And I wonder if I have to get rid of that colon again. Yeah, I have to get rid of the colon. All right. And then I'll click Save. And now I'll never have to build that report again. Anytime I go to Reports, and I go to my custom reports, it'll be in my custom reports. All right. So what else did I want to say? Here's one for the Bill Sims. Yeah, it is really very cool. Let's go ahead and click that. Here's Bill Sims, actual to budget. And here is the Villa Foundation, actual to budget. And here is the RAC Foundation, actuals to budget. Okay. Very, very cool. All right. I'm going to stop for a second because I'm going to say something that I think gets at what somebody had asked a long time ago. What if you want to see all of these on the same screen? In other words, I want one report that gives me all of my budget to actuals for each and every grant, okay? Rather than having to look at different reports. I mean, say you have 14 grants and you'd like to be able to see them all together. Is that something that anybody wants? Because if it is, I can show you how to get that as well, okay? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my budgeting. And what you're going to do is in addition to having, or instead of having a separate budget for each one of your grants, okay, I'm going to have a budget for all of my grants. So see, I've got a budget here that I've called all restricted grants. So what I've done with this, I'm going to go ahead and just edit this. I called it all restricted grants, and I added sub-budgets for every single one of my restricted grants. I'm going to add this one because I didn't have that one before. So you'll have to kind of add these and adjust them as you add new grants and subtract ones that are already gone. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And then for each one of them, here's the Villa Foundation. Here's the Bill Sims Foundation. I'm going to have to enter the RAC grant over again. I got to enter it in this one. I entered it in the budget that was for just the one grant. Now I need to enter it in the budget that's for all of the grants. So I'm going to put 50,000 here. And I'll go down to salaries. I probably won't fill out all of these because you get the idea. But I just want to put in some numbers here. 25,000, payroll taxes, 2,500, and health insurance. And I'll just put the rest of it in health insurance. It's really kind of how it is. But anyway, so I'll go ahead and save that. So now what I want you to see, all restricted grants. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to run a budget versus actual report. And let's see what it looks like. Okay. Now it's giving me the Bill Sims Foundation. It's giving me the RAC Foundation, and it's giving me the Villa Foundation, and then it's giving me the total. Now I need to change the date range, okay, to something really old so that it includes all. Oh, is there an all dates here? Yes, there's an all dates here. So I need to make this all dates. Now, when I make it all dates, unfortunately, it's going to give me names that I didn't have a budget for. So this kind of sucks. So I got to go to the customize button, and I have to filter by customer. And I'm going to pick just the ones that have budgets. You'd think we could just limit it to the ones that are restricted grants that I have budgets, but there's not really a way to do that easily right now in QuickBooks Online. So I'll have to check them off. Okay. But this is something that you would kind of once, when a new grant comes in and an old grant leaves, you would just adjust the report accordingly. So to make it a little bit easier to read, I'm going to customize it. Oh boy, I have to rebuild I have to refresh the screen again. And I'm going to go to customize, and then let's see, I'm going to get rid of, because I want to make it just a little easier to see. I'll get rid of the percent and I'll leave the dollar amount. So I'll uncheck that one. I'll click run report. Okay. I'd love to be able to get rid of this, but if you set up your grants as subs of a parent, then you can't really get rid of that column. You'd have to send it over to Excel to get rid of the column. But the idea is you can very easily see where you are with individual grants. So like the Villa Foundation, here's our budget. We've got 11,000 left to spend. And then we can see it by line item. All right. So we've got 6,000 to spend on airfare. We've got 3,844 we've spent so far. We've got 2,156 left. Okay. Yes, you could create budgets for all grants, for all programs. You could. All right. The idea here is comparing these total grant numbers to the amount we have budgeted for in annual costs in a given category. Any way to do that? Basically need to figure out how much is already covered with the grants. Yeah, that's what I just did. This grant, we have 2,156 left that we can use for the next year. Okay. So somebody wanted to know how to subcategorize. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and actually I'll click on the customer list. So your customers or your donors. Remember, I told you I don't like going to this black bar too much, but I'm going to have to get to the donor list or the customer list. Here they are right here, customers and leads. I'll go ahead and click customers right there. And then what you do to add a sub thing like I did here, I'll just edit this one so you can see how I did it. When you add the new customer, is a sub customer, and then you put the parent customer right there. That's how you do that. Okay. All right. So I think what I'm going to do now, we got about 10 minutes left. I've done the major stuff that I want to do. So I'm going to answer questions now. I'm just going to answer questions. Okay. But before I do that, I do want to show you when you go to QuickBooksMadeEasy.com and you click on courses and training and you click on webinars, we have a 3-day webinar series that's coming up for those using the online edition. It's happening November 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And the webinar for all 3 days is 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day for 3 days. It goes from 2 to 4:30, okay, Eastern Standard Time. And it covers everything you need to know about QuickBooks, okay? You can click on these to see what's covered on day 1, day 2, and day 3. And yes, you can get CPE for it if you are an accountant or a CPA, okay? Now, the thing about this is that when you go to get it, it is for a 3-day ticket, it's $299, okay? $299. We're giving you a coupon to get $40 off. So the coupon is MPQ40OFF. So remember that, MPQ40OFF. This means it'll be $259 for the 3 days, and you got to sign up by Saturday night. Otherwise, the coupon won't work. All right. If you would prefer on-demand training at your fingertips, you go to On Demand. And what we are going to be doing for the webinar series is a smaller version of 16 hours of training that's on demand. It's like the Bible of QuickBooks for nonprofits. It's called the bundle. And again, you get to it by going to On Demand. And if you click on this, make sure you do it for the online edition. It is normally, well, let's see, this is 16 hours of learning. They're like little videos on demand that you will be able to have access to. You'll get a username and a password. Each video is like 3 to 5 minutes long, and it's broken up into chapters and topics, and it teaches you all kinds of stuff. How to track special events, how to budget by program and grants. That's some of what we went over today. Track volunteers, creating thank you letters out of QuickBooks. Let's see, tracking funds, recording in-kind contributions, tracking capital campaigns, entering donations and grants, entering pledges and installments, tracking restricted grants. We're going to do a live one of these next week. But this is the Bible. You have access to it forever. And it's normally $399. We're going to give you $100 off. And that coupon code is right here. It's called NPQ298 right there. And then finally, if you're like, dude, I don't want to do anything except talk to you and get my questions answered and have you dial into my software, we do that. It would be me, Paige, or Barbara. You can sign up for technical support. It's normally $499. We're giving you $200 off of that. The code is NPQTS299, NPQTS299. And you go up to the top here at QuickBooks Made Easy. You click on tech support. You click on a year. You click online. You'll be paying $299 because when you do checkout, you'll put in that code. All right. So I want to start answering questions now. Thank you, Gwen, saying it's so worth it. Brittany, yes, you will get the webinar. Let's let's see. Is it helpful to do it again? So, Brittany, it's mostly the same material, so I don't know it's worth doing it again if you already did it in spring. All right. See how honest I am? Okay. I don't have donor or customer showing up when I enter a receipt. So, Karen, tell me what receipt you're talking about. Justine, is the best way to isolate unrestricted in a budget if income and expense is not allocated to a funder? Okay. So, this is what I would say. Whenever you enter a transaction, and this is kind of what I'm going to be talking about next week with restricted grants, you want to put the funder here. If there is no funder, put it to something called unfunded right there. Create a make-believe customer called unfunded. And then you'll be able to get a P&L that gives you the dollars that were spent out of grants and the dollars that were unfunded, and you can get it by program, by the way. Like, in other words, if I went into a, let's do a P&L. I'm going to go back into my just standard reports, and I'm going to do a P&L, and I'll just make it all dates. Actually, I won't. I'll make it. And I want everybody to see this because this is actually really cool. So if you, for a particular program, want to see what grants are paying for the program and what grants, what part of program expenses are unfunded that you can maybe ask for money for, here's a P&L for the entire organization. I'm going to customize that P&L and I'm going to filter it so that it only gives me transactions for a particular grant. It's for a particular program. We'll say the Guidance Center. So now I've got a P&L just for the Guidance Center. Then I'm going to go to the display columns by, and I'm going to pick customers or donors. These would be your grants. And if every transaction is pointed, then what you're going to see is you're going to see for each one, let's see, Bill Sims Foundation paid $8,000 out of this. The Villa Foundation paid $15 of the grant expenses, $115,000. We didn't point it to a grant at all. We didn't point it to a customer, so it goes in unspecified. I don't like that answer. I like always pointing something to a grant, but conceivably this line would say unfunded. So I'll just click on this and pick a transaction. Let's see. Looks like I just did all journal entries for these. So let me just, when you're making up sample files, that's what you do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick unfunded here as the name. Okay. I mean, you could just leave it blank, but I don't like doing that. I like telling people always put something in the customer field when you're on a transaction. All right. So then you can see 30,000 of it was unfunded. 58 was paid by the Villa Foundation. Isn't that kind of cool? I think that's really awesome. All right. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do more questions. Let's see. Karen, to enter a check received from one of our grants, I go to new, and then it depends. So again, you need to go to the 3-day webinar series, but you could either go directly to the bank deposit window or you could go to a sales receipt. If you go to the bank deposit window, you put the name of the funder right there in the received from column right there. If you do a sales receipt, and the reason why you would do a sales receipt is if you want to use QuickBooks as a donor database, you put the name of the funder right here. So the received from is where the customer is, okay? I did the series, but neither of them give me the donor or customer field. What do you mean the series? I don't know what that means, Karen. I'm going to move on. You can enter a budget by grant by month, correct? Yes, you can, Joan. How did you get to that screen? New, and then what? Okay, so I clicked on new. The deposit screen, I clicked over here, bank deposit. The sales receipt, I clicked on sales receipt over there. All right. Diana, I think you misunderstood what I was talking about. Would appreciate a second look. Try to see whether given a natural category is over or underfunded. not worried about actuals, just grant budgets relative to the total budget. So then if you did I think if you looked at your all restricted grants, and then you did an overview report for them. There it is, overview. And then you could simply compare that to your overall budget is what you would do for a particular year. But yeah, you'd have to put them on the same spreadsheet, it looks like. Let me see what else. Let's keep going. Is there a way to get a report similar to a budget profit and loss performance, which is in the desktop? So this, I'm glad you asked this question. So the point that she is making is that when I do, let me go back to my other data file. Because this is actually a very important point that she's making. If you budget by month, next time, okay. If you budget by month, oh, I'm in the wrong data file. Sorry. All right. There it is. Okay. That's okay, man. We'll get you. Okay, so if you budget by month, let's see where it is. Here it is. Her point is that their annual budget isn't on here. So she wants to know how to get the annual budget on there. The budget, there's a performance report that does have the annual budget on there when you budget by month, but it doesn't exist here in the land of QuickBooks. So you end up in QuickBooks Online. So you end up having to send 2 reports to the Excel. That's what you end up having to do. Okay. Let's see. If total grant is paid annually over 3 years, do you enter the amount paid for the calendar year in the restricted budget or the total amount of the 3-year grant? The budget for the restricted grant, you could do either, but I would say actually you can't, because these budgets don't add together. So you're going to have to do one budget for all 3 years and put all 3 years in the first month. Okay. So, all right. And people are really needing to leave. So is there anybody else that I missed? Could someone link the restricted grants webinar? Okay. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. So if you go to QuickBooks Made Easy and you go to webinars right there, here is the grant online tracking. It's October the 20th. It's only $89. Okay. What was the promo code for the bundle? The promo code for the bundle was NPQ298. NBQ298. Lakeisha, I would like to align my chart of accounts with 990 in auditing. Will it impact previous years? Depends upon how you do it. But there is no problems with making that change. That's something I probably could help you out with tech support. All right. So I think I'm going to be done. We still got 91 people on the call, but we are 3 minutes over. And Jean, I'm going to let you finish this out.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thanks for creating all of those discounts, significant discounts for the MPQ users. Very much appreciate it. And we'll see you early next year when we do a larger 2-day also on Mastering QuickBooks. Maybe these people's staff will need to be sent to that, right? Their assistants and junior bookkeepers. We are going to close this session. And as I said at the beginning, we're going to ask you to complete a 30-second survey, which provides some feedback to Greg and PQ and gives you an option to opt into his video monthly newsletter. So here it comes right now. Thank you, Greg.